Morning. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you for joining us, too. It's Donnie Bell in the house here, District 21, Etowah and Tishomingo counties. Chair of House Workforce Development Committee. Donnie, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
You, that's a new committee, isn't it?
No, sir. We've had the workforce.
You've had House Workforce Development?
Yes, sir. This is my 13th year to be chairman of it.
Whew. Okay, well, you didn't make people mad, apparently, so hadn't been a lot of stuff coming out of there. So, but you have been the chairman of that committee before then?
Yes.
All right. Well, it's taken on importance over the years, and never more than right now. But some of the updates that you would like to see, and where are we? A little status report on that committee, and we'll talk about a couple of bills coming out of there too.
Okay, Paul. Like I said, I've been chairman of it. This will be my 13th year, and it's sort of some of the stuff we've done is sort of kept secret. But two of the big items in the last few years that we've done is the career coaches across the state.
Yeah,
and that's been highly successful. And what they're doing is they're exposing students to business and industry and different opportunities across the state, and aligning their educational studies towards those careers, and it's been highly successful, especially in North Mississippi. We have Three Rivers organization, Randy Kelly and his team, and they oversee 70 career coaches in the northeast part of the state, and they are just making a difference in kids' lives and families' lives and changing the future for those kids.
Now, people hear this word career coaches, and it doesn't really formulate a vision. Tell me a little bit what they are. These are just volunteers, or these paid people who actually go into the school on a regular basis? How regular, and what do they talk to the kids about?
They're full-time positions.
Full-time, okay.
Full-time positions. They're not employed by the State Department of Education. We're funding them through the planning and development districts across the state. So they are very independent of the school system, so they have to work in conjunction with the school system, but at the same time they're free to navigate or educate these students in a way that exposes them to careers and opportunities across the state. They meet with employers to find out, what their needs are, what they're looking at for students coming out.
So they're kind of a clearinghouse for a multitude of different jobs then.
Yes, and it's really Paul, society has changed. Our educational system, or the needs of our educational system, has changed so much in the last 30 years. And where college education used to be the sort of the gold standard, you wanted your kids to go to college and obtain a degree. The workforce has determined that that's not necessarily the main route that everybody needs to take. And business and industry has been, in my view, sort of put to the side over the last 30 years and not been active in what they needed to do to educate kids and to voice their opinion on the skill sets that those kids need coming out of high school.
Yeah. I mean, you take a look at a lot of the jobs that you get when you come out of college, unless you're, specifically going to get a law degree or a doctorate of things such as that. Then you're probably going to be in a workforce where you're looking at $65,000 to $70,000 up to $100,000 and a student loan, or you go directly into that skill set, and you go to that job at $65,000 to $100,000 with no student loan, and you've got 4 years up on it. To be honest with you, even if you put community colleges in there, you're still up. But we're talking now to a multitude of different jobs that are paying that across the state.
Yeah, Paul, to get back to some of the successes that we've done, one of the key factors was the nurse navigator. Normally the graduation rate for nursing students is about 50%. We instituted these nursing navigators at the community colleges, and I'm speaking for Etowah because I'm more familiar with it. They went from a 56% retainage rate for freshman students to 88%. And then on their sophomore class, they're at 100% retention.
Yeah.
And that's one of the shortages in Mississippi is nursing. And we determined a few years ago that if we could help those students find out what's keeping them from graduating, why they're dropping out of school, And that's what the nurses navigators have done is help keep those students in the classroom.
Yeah. Didn't we also give some scholarship money or some student forgiveness as far as tuition for nurses?
I'm not aware of that.
I thought that was a program,
may have been.
Yeah.
It didn't come through my committee.
Donnie, how do we look now as far as that shortage? Are we closing the gap as far as nurses is concerned?
Yes, that's my understanding. With this, you're going from roughly a 50% graduation rate. If we can get it up to 75 or 80% graduation rate,
I got you.
That's going to make a huge difference. So we're not really, and we've expanded a lot of the nursing programs across the state too, to take in more students in, and now if we can maintain that retainage rate, it's going to be a big factor in the healthcare system.
When you go back to these coaches, do we need more of those? Do you have the money to hire more, or do you need more?
Yes, Paul, several school systems didn't take advantage of it when this first started, and the school system had to ask for it and be involved in it, and there were several areas of the state that didn't get involved in it, and now they're realizing they wish they would have been part of it. So yes, we do need to expand it. To the places in the state that do not have them and that want them. But, Paul, I will say this. It's very critical on these career coaches that when the planning and development districts hire these people, they got to be the right fit. They got to be sort of self-motivated and want to make a difference in these kids' lives. Yeah. And it really is. It's about finding the right person in those jobs.
How often do they go to the schools? Are they there constantly there, or do they get before the students on a regular basis, or you have to go to the office and talk to them?
No, they're at the school on a daily basis. If they're not at the school, they're meeting with an employer to schedule, job training at the employer or finding out what the employer's needs are. But yes, they're at the school almost on a daily basis.
Yeah, and so if a student wants to talk to them, they don't have any classroom time.
No, they're not teaching a class. No,
okay,
sir.
All right. Is that something that could be made mandatory? Because when you look at it, it's very, very important, more so than probably some of the other curriculum. And I guess the part that the schools have is they've got to allocate an office to that person, he or she. But is that something that could be made mandatory by the legislature?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
But, Paul, I think anytime you make something mandatory, if somebody has to do something and their heart's not in it, it's not going to work. I would rather have somebody that wanted it. And honestly, if the school system truly cares about their kids, they would want this in their school system.
How many schools do we have that are not partaking in that, do you know?
I'm not sure on that, Paul.
Some of the bills coming into the workforce development, any ones that you spotlight that we really need to get this one all the way through?
Not at this time. Now, I'm reviewing roughly 30 bills that's been dropped already, and I'm going through those. Nothing in those really sparks my interest at this time. We are meeting on a regular basis with Accelerate Mississippi, with employers, business and industry. Like yesterday, I had a meeting with Nissan, and they were very helpful and telling me their needs of what they would like students to know coming out of high school.
Yeah.
And then we've met with Chevron.
Wait a minute. Let me go back to Nissan. And I don't want to do dirty laundry here, but was there any comments on some of the people that are applying for a job and maybe where they come up short?
They were very positive.
Were they good?
Yes.
Good.
And one of the things that they're really something that we did, another success that we did a few years ago, we instituted the work keys in the curriculum at the K-12 level. And they're very active in using that as a tool to select who goes to work for them. And I thought that was really interesting. And they said that, the most retainage they get from employees is the ones that scored silver on the work keys.
Yeah. We have a lot of the bills that have been put forth in your committee is to raise the minimum wage, $8.50, $10, and we have a plethora of that. That's nothing new. I think that happens about every year. More with Donnie Bell when we return to Keither Stamps coming on at 8:05. The Senate resumes work 10 o'clock this morning. The House returns at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Back with more. See Mr. Chairman Donnie Bell of Workforce Development in the beautiful area of Etowah and Tishomingo County. Is the smallmouth bass fishing still pretty good up there?
Absolutely.
It's the only place in the state that has that. You know that, don't you?
Yeah. to some of us, that's correct.
And when you do catch them, when you take them out of the live well and you clean them in that clean, cold water, they're as sweet as a trout. I've only had an opportunity to do that once, and it was a remarkable memory. But that's an absolutely beautiful place in the state park there, in and around foothills of the Appalachian. I was reading a story because there was a story that highlighted on the coast that somebody was saying that there were 4,000 jobs available at Ingalls, and they had to poo-poo that idea. There was not 4,000. Not sure where that came from. But the company did said, yes, we are actively accepting applications for individuals that believe they have what it takes to be a shipbuilder at Ingalls. They've got over 500 job titles. So it's very difficult for you not to like one of them. And I just say this because people in areas where there are just not a lot of opportunities, whether it's in the Delta or some other rural areas of this state, and if you want to stay in Mississippi and still be close to home, there are some great opportunities. Take a look at the Golden Triangle now, and when they finish the big plant there up in Marshall County, and of course the data processing plant here in the Madison County area. So we are slowly but surely achieving that goal. Donnie, why did it take us so long to put this workforce development thing together?
Well, again, that's a good question.
If I answered it, it would be because there are so many people with their fingers in the pot. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, there is, and understanding workforce. Look, the first year or two, it took me to understand, to gain an understanding of workforce, because it means something different to everybody, whether you're talking about the construction, manufacturing, medical field. All of those things have a piece of the pie in workforce. But in Mississippi, we've sort of sat back and just almost been silent too long. And I'm not being critical of business, but they hadn't been as active in getting down into the weeds and finding out, like, what skill sets do kids need. And that's something that we're really digging into on the House side. I've had several meetings, and we're still doing that. And that was one of the reasons of meeting with Nissan. Like, if a student graduates high school, what specific skill set should that student have? And it's taken a while for folks to understand that there's a different skill set for people that are going to college and a different skill set for somebody that's going into the CTE field or directly to work. And, whether you're talking about higher mathematics, whether you're talking about Algebra 2, geometry, pre-cal, certain areas need that, and then others need a more personal finance, a construction math, a business math. And what we're looking at is trying to have some flexibility to provide that skill set to those students and parents and employers across the state. Paul, I do need to correct one thing. The district lines changed now, and I represent Etowah and Monroe County.
And, do you?
Yes, it changed, and I better correct that, or it might hurt me back home.
Yes, I would think so. But it doesn't matter. I still like the smallmouth at Tishomingo.
Yes.
So I go back to the fact that we had for years and years, we were talking about it a couple of 3 days ago, back in the days when we were switching over from agriculture to industry, and a lot of times we didn't even feel like we could compete. But we've seen that with I think the number one was when we garnered the attention of the automobile industry with Nissan, and then of course Toyota just put the cherry on the icing on the ice cream for that one, and we've marched on since then. But we can compete. But the one thing you can't teach in school sometimes is work ethic, and that's a big deal.
Well, yes, I sort of disagree. I think you can teach it.
Okay. All right.
Because if we just give up and say it can't be taught, it's something that if parents, my parents taught me work ethic. And, yes, it may not be being taught at home, but we've got to have work ethic along with job skills and hands-on training if we're going to have a workforce in this state. And yes, it is a struggle, and it is as part of the younger generation. But I'm old enough, Paul, that I look back and I think, to some of my elders back when I was a youth, that I may not have had the strongest work ethic that they had. But it is a factor in our state, and it is something that needs to be addressed. And it can be, if you set your expectations that this is what's expected out of you, people can change. And sometimes financial situations put them in that where they don't have a choice but to change.
I agree with you. How early do you think this needs, as far as the coaches in some of these schools? At what age do you think that they really need to be talking to these students? Is it? I would think middle school for sure.
Yes, 8th, 9th grade, in that age group, and honestly, it's just about informing the kids that there's other opportunities, there's other routes to be successful in life, and that's what we want is our kids to be successful.
I had heard, we had this conversation once, and I forgot who it was on the air with me, but they were real honest about it. Said we have a situation in schools where, for so long, just like parents wanted their kids to go to college, because it was just the way things were, and you had the better chance to succeed. Also, schools and the administration, from the principal, the superintendent, the schools, or the teachers, they wanted to see a large percentage of their kids go to college. And really didn't, I shouldn't say it didn't matter, but the thought behind that was not so much whether they were doing what they wanted to do or anything else. It's just that it looked good for the school. We've sent 85% of our people to college. And so you had them working against this idea of workforce development.
Paul, we're still fighting that to this day.
And it's probably going to take forever to get over that.
Well, I'm sort of a numbers guy a little bit, and Mississippi actually ranks in the top 5, if not number 1 in the nation per capita in the number of students that go to college.
Really?
Yes. I mean, you'll get hand claps if you tell people that in a group setting. But then when you tell them within 6 years, we're 48th in the nation in the number of kids that obtain a degree. So we have been very, very successful at sending kids to college.
Yeah.
But in my view, we're not preparing a lot of those kids for college at the K-12 level, and we're not preparing them to go to work at the same time because we're trying to do both. And it's two different skill sets.
That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard those figures. And we had somebody else on, too. Donnie Bell is my guest. Donnie is chairman of Workforce Development in the House. We had somebody else on, it's been a long time ago, talking about how businesses and industry, it may have been from InSpark, I'm not sure who it was, when business or industry looks at this and they ask the data, they also ask for how many people in your state have degrees and certain degrees. So that's a big deal to them.
Yeah, it is. We would like to see I think it's 55% of people have a degrees or certifications or educations in Mississippi. We would like to achieve that, but at another level, if you take the 80% of students that go to college, and then you look at 32% graduate, and you're left with 48% that dropped out of college, you got 20% that never went to college.
Yeah.
You got 68% of your workforce in Mississippi that doesn't have an education, even to go to work. And they feel like if they went to college and they dropped out, a lot of those people feel like they're failures, and that's just not true. It's maybe a lot of those people never should have went to college to start with. They should have went to a career technical education and gained a job skill that makes them employable, that makes them a great living wage. A lot of these technical jobs now pay more than college education does.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and you don't have that student loan in there,
that's
too,
right.
Which is a monster. I'm a little confused on the internship because we used to have it. Some schools have it, some don't. Where in the, I think in the high school, I'm not sure about 11th grade, but in the 12th grade, if this is something you want to do in construction or whatever it happens to be, then you get out of school half a day or something like that. Can you explain that when we come back?
Yes.
and see where that is and where we're going with that also. Donnie Bell, final segment coming up. It's a guy named Ryan Miller. I've heard the name before, and as a matter of fact, I think, Donnie, you probably have heard the name before also from Accelerate.
And his music, yes.
Yes. Is it playing on the intercom in the office? I just wanted to make sure that he gets his BMI check-in. Let's talk about Accelerate. First of all, let me just touching base on this one. We have some of those internships going on in different areas?
Yeah, yes, Nissan has that going on, and it's strange you asked, but the co-op is what I actually used to teach in school, was the co-op program.
Yes.
And it's still effective. One thing that really hurts that program is honestly the federal government. On some of these jobs, you have to be 18 years or older to be on that job site, and that really puts a damper on it. But if they can put them in a position where it's 100% safe for those kids, it is working in certain areas.
Is it offered across the state at different locations?
It's really more in line with the employer. I know Nissan is doing it, and they've got a training center that's phenomenal that really does a good job, and they're doing about 30 kids a year with that. And it's
in 12th grade?
11th and 12th grade.
11th and 12th grade. Well, that is impressive. Are we talking about on the line or in different other areas?
It's not. They're not allowed to work on the line because there's certain equipment there that they're not allowed to run. But they are teaching them, certain tools that they will be using and those types of things, whether it's air tools or electric tools. And that way those kids have a jump start when they do go to work.
From the C-Smart text line, the reason for discrepancy between how many Mississippi kids go to college versus graduation is because K through 12 only teaches to the test, not long-term knowledge retention. Bo in Starkville. Well, a lot of people would agree with that, and hopefully we're changing that over a period of time as far as the testing is concerned. Yeah,
Paul, that's something we're really looking at with Ryan Miller and his team, Dr. Courtney Taylor. We're really looking at what their sector strategies is, and what they've done is they develop locations across the state, like within a 50-mile area of a city or something, what jobs are available. And then we're diving into what skill sets those kids need to work in that environment. And we're looking at the CTE programs across the state about them having the ability to adapt and to change to meet those job demands. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but Ryan Miller and his team, Dr. Taylor and Garrett, and we're working well with them. The community colleges across the state are phenomenal. Paul, when I first started this, a lot of the community colleges was against career and technical education, or wasn't against it, but they wasn't on board with it. And now you just see the results at the college campuses and the emphasis that they're putting on CTE programs. It really is amazing. And I will say this, Paul, that with what's happening with Amazon and the battery plant and Marshall County, Mississippi is, in my opinion, I think we're fixing to explode with jobs in Mississippi, and we need to start training our kids to meet those demands. We're getting the last laugh, as I always say. But look, you talk about you can go to college, but if you want to stay home, have a great job, and your interest is in computers and things, take, for instance, the data center. That's going to be specifically targeting in one area. There are a multitude of other things you would learn in college, but will you specifically learn about data? Now, if we can center in on that, which was what we're doing, then it's going to provide somebody with a good life. I love Chris in Forest County talking about the expertise of some of the students. He said, just how do you qualify this? Chris said, just to have them show me where the 7/8 is on a tape measure. If they can do that, they've got the job. So. Well, and on that data, we've got a phenomenal. It's really a private enterprise in Water Valley. That's a coding academy. Yes, and doing extremely well. Really phenomenal job that they're doing. And there's pockets across the state that, certain businesses, industry have started their own educational system because it's not being met. The demand is not being met in our school systems.
Well, but either way, with a combination of those two working together, we're getting there. And,
Yes.
and I think we're a lot farther than we have ever been, and it seems we've figured this out, where Chamber of Commerce doesn't fight Chamber of Commerce, where one government program's not fighting the other government program. And, man, we've had too much of that in the past. We really have. Donnie, good job on that, sir. Appreciate it very, very much. Stay in touch, and if it's anything you need, give us a call. You got a microphone here.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
You got it. Donnie Bell, chairman of, and also District 21, DeKeither Stamps comes up. We'll talk to him 8:05 after we get an update to keep you informed about what's happening on a national basis, anything popping in Iran.